Hello friends, this is Dr. Ameya Kulkarni, orthopedic knee and shoulder surgeon at Sanjeevan Hospital, Nashik. The topic of discussion today is the lateral structures of the knee. We will be covering the anatomy of the lateral and the posterolateral structures of the knee in brief. The lateral side of the knee is often ill understood due to its complex nature and multiple small ligamentous structures. Historically, it has been compared to the dark side of the moon, as we did not know much about it. The objective of this talk is to present in brief the anatomy of the important structures of the lateral side of the knee. The lateral side of the knee is divided into extraarticular structures and intraarticular structures. The extraarticular structures can be divided into three further layers. Layer 1 has the iliotibial band and the superficial layer of the biceps femoris. Layer 2 comprises of lateral retinaculum, patellofemoral ligament and patellomeniscal ligaments. Layer 3 comprises of lateral collateral ligament, popliteus tendon, fabulofabular ligament, arcuate ligament, coronary ligament and the capsule. This is a diagrammatic representation of the posterior and posterolateral structures of the knee. Let's start with anterolateral ligament. It originates proximally around the lateral epicondyle just anterior to the LCL attachment. Distally, it attaches somewhere between the Gerdy's tubercle and the head of the fibula. To be precise, it attaches 18 to 25 mm posterior to the Gerdy's tubercle or 17 to 24 mm anterior to the fibula head. It is about 6.7 mm in width and 2 mm in thickness. It acts as an anterolateral stabilizer in 30 to 60 degrees of knee flexion. The lateral collateral ligament. It starts 1.4 mm proximal and 3.4 mm posterior to the lateral epicondyle. It is about 70 mm in length and attaches 8.2 mm posterior to the anterior aspect of the fibula head. It stabilizes the knee against varus and external rotation in 0 to 30 degree of knee range, after which it becomes lax and less efficient as a knee stabilizer. The popliteal tendon. It is one of the most important structures of the posterolateral complex. It originates from the posterior aspect of the tibia just above the soleal line and is attached to the lateral epicondyle just anterior and distal to the LCL attachment. It passes below the LCL and arcuate ligament. The popliteus tendon attaches to the anterior-most one-fifth of the popliteal sulcus. It also gives attachment to the lateral meniscus in the form of popliteomeniscal ligaments. The popliteus muscle tendon unit forms an inverted Y-shaped structure. It resists posterior translation, varus stress, and external rotatory forces, and acts as a dynamic stabilizer for the lateral meniscus by preventing excessive forward translation during extension and also preventing medial entrapment during a varus force. The popliteofibular ligament. It is the second most important structure of the PLC, first one being the popliteus tendon. It starts from the muscle tendon junction of the popliteus tendon and attaches to the fibula head in two divisions. The anterior division attaches 2.8 mm distal to the fibular styloid on the anterior-medial aspect, whereas the posterior division attaches 1.6 mm distal to the tip of styloid on the posterior-medial side. The posterior division is the one which we commonly reconstruct during our PLC reconstructions. It is a static stabilizer against varus external rotation and posterior translation. The avulsion fractures of the posterior division of the popliteal fibular ligament are known as arcuate fractures. Coming to the arcuate ligament. This is actually a Y-shaped thickening of the capsule. It arises from the fibular styloid and divides into two limbs. The medial limb curves over the popliteus muscle and joins the oblique popliteal ligament, whereas the lateral limb ascends to blend in with the posterolateral complex capsule at the level of the lateral gastrocnemius muscle. It is an important part of the PLC providing posterolateral stability. the fabulofibular ligament. This ligament originates from the fibula and attaches to the tip of the styloid process. The fibula is present only in 20% of the individuals, and in the rest of the individuals, this ligament extends up to the lateral femoral condyle and is called the short lateral ligament. It acts as a posterolateral stabilizer in full extension of the knee and becomes less important during flexion range. The iliotibial tract. It is the continuation of the tensor fascia lata and gets inserted on the Gerdy's tubercle and some part of the lateral retinaculum. It has three layers: the superficial layer, the intermediate layer, which gets attached to the lateral supracondylar ridge. Third is the capsulo-osseous layer or the Kaplan's fibers, which get integrated with the lateral knee capsule and the lateral aspect of the patella. The band moves anteriorly in knee extension and posteriorly in knee flexion, but remains tense throughout the range. In flexion, the IT band, the popliteus tendon, and the LCL cross each other to form a mesh kind of a structure, while greatly enhancing the lateral stability of the knee in flexion. It resists varus internal rotation force and acts as an anterolateral stabilizer. These are some MRI images showing the anterior and the posterior attachment of the IT band. The biceps femoris. It originates from the ischial tuberosity, the long head, and the linea aspera, the short head, and inserts on the head of the fibula. The long head of the biceps has five major insertions, three of which are extremely important: the direct arm, which gets attached to the fibula styloid; the anterior arm, which gets attached to the anterolateral surface of the tibia; and the lateral aponeurotic expansion, which attaches to the lateral retinaculum. The short head of the biceps has three tendinous arms: the direct, capsular, and the anterior arms. All of them confluence and attach to the posterolateral aspect of the fibular styloid and the lateral tibial rim. The Sigon fracture is due to the avulsion of this anterior arm of the short head of the biceps. It is a part of the arcuate ligament complex providing posterolateral stability, and also a dynamic knee stabilizer by providing a powerful knee flexor and external rotator of the tibia. Coming to the knee capsule. It is attached circumferentially to the edges of the femur and tibia in the horizontal plane. It attaches to the outer edge of the lateral meniscus via coronary ligaments. The lateral thickening of this capsule is called the lateral capsular ligament, which is further divided into meniscofemoral and meniscotibial ligaments. At the posterior edge of the IT band, the capsule divides into two layers encompassing the LCL. The inner lamina terminates near the arcuate ligament and the outer lamina terminates at the fabulofibular ligament. The capsule and the meniscofemoral as well as meniscotibial ligaments act as secondary stabilizers to varus stress. Coming to intra-articular structures of the lateral part of the knee, the most important structure is the lateral meniscus. It is a more circular structure as compared to the medial meniscus. It covers about 2/3 of the entire lateral articular surface. It is about 10 to 12 mm in width and about 4 to 5 mm in thickness. The anterior attachment is just anterior to the intracondylar eminence, and the posterior attachment is just anterior to the posterior root of the medial meniscus. The posterior horn is attached to the femoral condyles via ligament of Risberg and ligament of Humphrey. Due to this attachment to the femoral condyle, the lateral meniscus moves more freely with the femoral condyle, thus reducing the chances of lateral meniscus tear. The popliteomeniscal ligament is a dynamic stabilizer of the lateral meniscus, as discussed earlier. The lateral geniculate artery supplies 10 to 25% of the periphery of the lateral meniscus, which we know as the red zone. What are the epidemiological factors of PLC injury? Isolated PLC injuries are extremely uncommon and constitute only 2% of all the acute ligamentous knee injuries. whereas ACL PCL along with a PLC injury constitute up to 80% of all acute ligamentous knee injuries. The main mechanism of this PLC injuries is hyperextension, varus, and external rotatory injuries. It commonly occurs due to blunt force on the anterior medial part of proximal tibia, forcing the knee in hyperextension and varus. How do these injuries look on MRI? So this is an indirect sign of a PLC injury in which we can see bone bruises on the anterior medial aspect of the femoral and the tibial condyle. This occurs due to the mechanism of injury where the lateral side opens up and the medial side is compressed against each other. Here on the left side of your screen, you can see a nice continuous lateral collateral ligament which you can see as a hypointense signal marked by the red arrow. On the right side of your screen, you can see a torn LCL ligament which has been avulsed from its fibular origin. Coming to biceps femoris, on the left side of your screen, you can see the biceps tendon getting attached to the lateral part of fibula. Whereas on the right side of your screen, you can see there is edema and the biceps tendon has been avulsed from its fibular origin. The popliteus tendon. On the left side of your screen, you can see the popliteal groove marked with the red arrow with the popliteal tendon nicely attached in the popliteal groove. Whereas on the right side of your screen, you can see a hyperintense signal in between the popliteus tendon and the popliteal groove, indicating a complete avulsion from its origin. So I hope the dark side of the moon is a little less dark now. I thank you very much and I hope you got to learn something new today. Thank you.